Zero. Welcome to MANstream Media Weekly, a place where you get the news and the issues from a male-friendly perspective. And tonight we have Paul Elam, the founder of A Voice for Men, with us from Houston, Texas. Paul, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I found out today that I am the Gloria Steinem of the MHRM.
You beat me to it.
Yeah.
I'll be teasing you for a long time about that one.
Well, you know, I looked around for my like oversized pair of gaudy pink glasses, the sort of the Elton John look that Gloria does, but I couldn't find them, so you're just going to have to settle for me.
If I see some when I go out shopping, I will surely send them to you. And I'm Tom Golden from outside of Washington, D.C., and we're glad to be with you here tonight. We're missing Warren Farrell. Warren had to back out at the last minute, and we're probably going to reschedule for sometime next week with Warren, and also be with Peter, who couldn't make it tonight. So Paul and I are here, and we're going to be talking about the Vox article. And I hope everybody's had a chance to have a look at that Vox article. It's an interesting shift in mainstream media's approach to men's stuff. Paul, what do you think of it? You're the Gloria Steinem. You go ahead.
Oh, yeah. I still can't get over that. Anyway, folks, for those of you that haven't read it, there is a link in the low bar to the Vox article. Highly, I don't know if I want to call it entertaining or fanciful writing. What it is there is a shift there. What he wrote was a difference in what we've seen from the likes of Mother Jones and Time Magazine and WASPO and WAPO, excuse me. Let me get my jargon correct. And all these other publications that have written the same sort of regurgitated SPLC, Elliot Rodger, bad men, hate women. I will give the guy credit. It wasn't that. It was actually appeared to be some sort of condescending, sneering attempt to offer his understanding from a safe distance without really acknowledging much. But he did do a couple of things that were different than what we're seeing, and I want to talk about those first. One, he acknowledged in more or less in pretty clear terms that he could at least cognitively comprehend the idea of a men's movement and why it might be happening. And he also acknowledged, and this is a first, the first time that I've ever seen that a journalist in a major publication like this acknowledged that AVFM actually did activism on behalf of men and boys, that we did more than whine about feminists or want to put women in the kitchen to make sandwiches and barefoot and pregnant and all that other garbage you've seen over the years. So I'm going to give a little kudos for that. But overall, the piece struck me, Tom, as really condescending and sort of like he was writing it from high up. And while he acknowledged the humanity of myself and of the anonymous character Max that he spoke with apparently in person and at length, and even treated Roosh with some basic human dignity when he was writing about it, there was still this sort of arm's distance. I'm not saying I agree with you, but I'm going to be the bigger man here and make myself look better, sort of magnanimous in a phony sort of way. Yeah. What was your reaction to it, Tom?
Well, my first reaction was really positive. I mean, when I saw the way he treated you, I was just shocked. Because, it was obvious that he treated you and Max and Roosh as human beings. That's new, folks. That's really new. I mean, if you've been watching the Post articles and the New York Times and the Time Magazine stuff, I mean, they really have hammered Paul and whoever as being some sort of monster. And it didn't happen this time. So that, to me, is a huge shift. And the guy treated you like human beings. And he treated what we're doing as if it had some merit. Not a lot, but some merit. And he literally said AVFM was how did he call it? The center of the men's movement, and that it was doing good advocacy work. So I thought, you got to like that part. And that's impressive.
Well, I'm sure he'll get some emails correcting him.
I'm sure he will hear a lot of stuff about how he was so wrong to even say that much. But, the Elliot Rodger thing, he did mention Elliot Rodger in this piece.
Yeah, he did, but I don't think it was with the same implication that it was somehow connected to us, as we've seen, and maybe being too generous. I honestly fail to see the need to bring Elliot Rodger into these articles any more than you would bring Charles Manson or Andrea Yates or any other people that have committed multiple murders.
Exactly. It would be like writing an article about feminism and starting it with Andrea Yates. I mean, it's like, wait a minute, this just doesn't add up. It doesn't make any sense. The guy had no ties to the men's movement.
Well, I think it was pretty clear to me from what I saw in his article that he had done his research, and I think he tried to skate a line on what the sisterhood was going to tolerate. I think he might have felt obliged to bring up Elliot Rodger, even though, as a journalist, if he did any research, he knows there's no connection between that and the men's movement. As a matter of fact, there was like an anti-connection. Elliot Rodger hated the manosphere, and absolutely he belonged to PUA hate, and critiqued those people a lot. So I'm not buying it, but it was feeble. I got to say, there was parts of it that were totally feeble, and there were parts of it that I thought, well, about time somebody acknowledged that we're actually human beings and that we're actually give a damn about what we're doing. But I still think we're a long way off.
Oh boy. Yeah, the title of the article tells a little bit too. It was "The Internet is full of men who hate feminism. Here's what they're like in person."
And even that, I mean, at least he fulfilled his promise. The internet there's lots of men and women that hate feminism.
Yes.
And at least he said hates feminism instead of hates women.
Exactly.
At least he's understanding there's a difference in between an ideology and between a gender demographic, which most reporters have failed at mentioning.
I agree totally. But he did start off with that title, and it was meant to say, now there's this backlash to this thing that's been right for years. Feminism has been right for years, and now there's this negative backlash. And, he paints Sarkeesian as an innocent victim and talks about all these people who hate her. And Max says, oh, well, I don't like Sarkeesian, but he never tells us why he doesn't like Sarkeesian. So he never went into the issues of why Max didn't like, just the surface. And that was another thing that struck me about this article, is it was just like the Mother Jones piece, where the whole thing is about people rather than about issues. Each issue that he talked about, men's issue, was like one sentence long. It was tiny. It was a little teeny bit. And you can't, what was that article, 4,000 words, 5,000?
It was pretty long. I would guess it was 4,000 or 5,000 words.
Yeah, it was a long article, and to not really go into any detail about any of the issues says a lot. And that's one more piece of the other thing that he did that ticked me off was he talks about men's rights activists feel oppressed. It's like, wait a minute, I've never heard a men's activist say, "Oh, men are oppressed." No one's ever said that. That's not what we talk about at all.
No, I think there's been an implication, and I think it's an accurate one, that if you look at the definition of oppression, where one of the ways you would define oppression is that laws are stacked against a group, that they are treated differently in criminal cases and civil cases simply because of the identifying characteristics of that group. I don't think men are oppressed. I really don't, but I can understand why some people might feel.
Yeah, I can.
If they're coming out of a court and the court took their children and took their property and threatened to jail them if they didn't pay up, that individual, I think, has a rightful claim to make that statement.
Yes.
But are men as a class generally oppressed? I don't think so. Yeah. And I don't know anybody who talks that way, so I don't know exactly where he didn't quote anybody. He just sort of said it like it was, a fact that did not need explanation.
Yes, that's a good point, though. That oppression can be related to the laws being stacked against a group, and certainly that's true for men today. That's a good point. But the guy painted men's activists as being some sort of weirdos, you know, like he said, in the popular imagination, men's rights activists are neckbeards, morbidly obese basement dwellers with a suspect affection for My Little Pony. You know, it's like, wow. And he's not saying, I think that, but he's saying, in the popular imagination. You know, it's like, oh.
Well, I'll give him credit for that. I mean, he could have been a lot more overt about it, and he should have been much more overt. But if the point he was trying to make was that here's the, you know, imaginative idea of what MRAs are, but here I'm going to show you the more human side, and he did go about showing the more human side. But he didn't make a connection between those two statements to say, here's what you might think they are, but they're really not that. They're actually human beings. They're not neckbeards, at least not most of them. I mean, he didn't interview Dean Esme, so. But I always pick on Dean. He's a great guy. But I thought it was a sort of an awkward attempt, Tom, to wander a little bit near the line. Well, he knew he couldn't talk about men's issues, because if you write openly about men's issues, I mean, that
your history.
May be, well, you could be somebody like Peter Lloyd, who does it, who does it on certain high-profile websites, and you could, as long as you're identified as somebody that writes about those issues, you can do it. People like Kathy Young do it. But if you want to be in with the feminist sisterhood, you can never talk about men's issues. Right. You're done. You're toast there. And I think he wanted to avoid that. Well, I wonder why. Well, Tom, it's because they believe in equality, and that feminism has the answers for men too. If we'll just help them destroy patriarchy, then things will be just fine for men.
Oh, of course.
Yes, they'll never lose their kids to women again.
How could I have missed that?
Well, apparently we both didn't get the memo, because I'm not buying that shit either.
Oh God!
But it was good. It has sent the website avoiceformen.com has been wild with traffic all day.
I was going to ask you about
They did provide a link. Yep, they provided a link in the article. Of course, that drove a lot of traffic to the site, and just like we always do, it's like, I think it was Vince Lombardi that said, you know what, if you can hand your playbook to the opposing team with every play in it, hand it right to them, and if you execute, they can't stop you anyway. It doesn't make any difference. And I think he said something to that effect, and we've sort of taken that approach. It really doesn't matter. This is how it works. Vox.com, Mother Jones, ABC, whoever, they come along and they write their ideological narrative about what gender politics are and about what ABFM and the men's movement is, and then they send people to come find all the demons, you know. Like, oh, where are the bad men? Here's the bad men. And that's a lot of the clicks we're getting right now, is from people who read that article and say, oh, man, this is like a train wreck. I got to go see how crazy these people are.
Yes.
And then they come to the site and they find articles by Aaron Pitsey and Christina Hoff Sommers, and not Christina, by the way, just she does not write for ABFM. We've gotten reprint permissions on a couple of articles, but they will see volumes of material written by men and women.
Yeah.
And it is nothing like the way Mother Jones or ABC or WAPO or Time or any of these publications have portrayed us. And so a percentage of those people come there and they read and they say, you know what, I've been lied to. They lied to me, and I came here and I'm finding out the truth, and those people have contributed. That is the growth of ABFM, is that we sort of grab mainstream media, we bitch slap them around a little bit, we offend feminists. The mainstream media, which is feminist dominated, cannot resist going in to destroy us. They think they're destroying us. Oh, we're going to write an article and tell people, Paul Elam demon. And then people will go there and they'll say, Paul Elam's a demon, and they'll write bad things, and some of them do. But there is a percentage of people that come there and find out that they're full of shit in what they say about us, and then start discovering issues that they've never considered before, and that's how we grow. So listen up, mainstream. If you want to be smart, you'll shut up and quit writing about us, because the more you do, the bigger we get. Why? Because our cause is legit.
Yes, indeed.
That's why.
And I think this article may be pulling in also people who may be on our side, because they mentioned the paragraph, they had the link to AVFM. He also said, this is these people are doing the activism for men, unlike other sites, and it's like that was pretty nice of him to say. And I think it's going to pull in people who are interested just to see the kinds of work that we're doing here,
That's another one of those items, Hilterhood. How dare you say that there's anything legit about them and they're actually doing work? That's not what you say. You say they don't do anything but lie. That's the narrative.
There you go.
And if you ever want to write again in this town, and we're laughing about that, but that's true. We know people have been persecuted for offering balanced articles and balanced perspectives. They have been shut out of their work, and they have been harassed and bullied for a long time.
Yes.
There's nothing new to that. I was thinking, Tom, and I don't know, is there any more that you want to offer to sum up on that? Because there's another little juicy matter that we want to turn to.
I did want to ask you what it's like to have the name Gloria.
Well, I tell you, compared to some of the names I've been called, Gloria's not so bad. I would have rather he would have said, because he said if the men's movement has a Gloria Steinem, it's Paul Elam. I would have rather he said if the men's movement had a Malcolm X, it's Paul Elam. I think that would have had a lot more punch. I would have considered it much more flattering. The last thing the men's movement needs is a Gloria Steinem. The last thing the women's movement needed was a Gloria Steinem. But that's what they got saddled with anyway.
I think in his mind, there was need for a leader, and he was saying that you were possibly that leader who was going to do that. And that's a compliment, Because he starts off the article saying the men's movement has no leader. It's just this amorphous amoeba kind of thing. And then he says later on that Elam is the Gloria Steinem of the movement. And I think he's saying that, you are pulling things together, and you have been. The work you've done at Voice for Men is very important, and it's pulling lots of people together of like mind. And that's critical stuff.
I think it's real important to remember, though, Tom, that he was probably more correct in the way he opened it. Yes, in terms of I'm the CEO here, and I've experienced some great success in pulling activists together from around the world and in vocalizing these issues.
Yep.
That, I suppose, makes me somewhat of a leader. But what he does not understand, and what no one in the mainstream seems to understand, as to why it proves a point that attacking me or attacking ABFM or calling me leader or not a leader really doesn't make any difference. The men's movement as a whole is so much bigger than ABFM. The men's movement is about a social trend away from the garbage that men have been fed for the last 50 years. It is about men going their own way. It is even about the practitioners of game and PUA and other things that I don't particularly find useful, but it is a fact that the men's movement is about men finding a different way than what has been, prescribed for them for the last half century, which is basically to be lapdogs for women, to sit up and say, may I please have another every time you've been hit. So I'll take the compliment that I'm a leader out of ABFM, but there is a whole lot of people, an enormous amount of people out there doing great work, yourself among them.
Well, thank you.
That I think that isn't going to be stopped. Even if they found a way to shut me up, it wouldn't make a difference in the end.
Something tells me they're not going to find a way.
Well, I mean, they can send the hitman, but that's the only way. I'm not going to go down without a fight, and I'm not going to ever shut up as long as I'm breathing.
Yeah.
And if I get throat cancer from all the years that I smoked, then I'll have one of those little boxes, and I'll talk funny, but I'll still be talking. Not going to make any difference. But no, I appreciate that. But There is a lot more to this than meets the eye.
Absolutely.
And this guy barely scratched the surface, barely understands the topic.
I don't think he understands
Let me interrupt. Let me interrupt for a second just to let people know, we love your comments here, but for some reason, for weeks now, we've been setting the comment tracker from Google. Have you gotten anything through, Tom?
Just one from you.
Yeah, and I don't have any. So it's not that we've been ignoring your comments. It's really been that Google is not working like it should. And I mean, it's gotten so bad you'd think Microsoft bought them out, but we know that didn't happen. But there's another story on here that we wanted to talk about. As a matter of fact, I got a third one at the end I want to talk about involving P.Z. Myers and free thought blogs, which is really interesting. But that's going to be a very short talk. We want to talk more at length recently about Karen Straughan's interview on Young Turks with Sink, and I am not going to try to pronounce Sink's last name, Uyghur or so. Well, look, I lied. I tried. I don't know how to say it correctly, but Sink interviewed Karen Straughan. I have written an article about it that's in editing now because I thought it was such a sterling example of just what we're dealing with like Vox and Mother Jones and everything else. It was like on video. You could see the thought process of this whole denial-ridden dissonance and craziness around ideological thinking from Sink. That was beautiful. It was beautiful. So that'll be up on the site soon. But what was your impressions watching that, Tom?
Well, beautiful was not the first word that came to my mind. I can tell you. I was just amazed at Karen's articulating things so clearly, and she would just get on a roll, boy, and she was nailing things. And as she would nail them, you could see him get more and more upset, and then he'd say, Karen.
Stop talking, it's scaring me.
Yes, stop talking, because if you keep saying things that are contradicting my worldview, my head is going to explode. It's like it was just the heck out of me, because he had nothing to say in response to what she was bringing out. It was just bomb after bomb. So to me, it was just watching a parade of beautiful articulation of the things that we face, and his not being able to respond to much at all.
What I saw, and I agree with that entirely, and it was funny, what I saw was Karen being in her regular form. She's incredibly intelligent. Yep. She's incredibly well-read. She's informed about history. She knows the subject. We have taken things like suffrage, and we've reduced them to simple little sound bites. Women couldn't vote in 1920, and that's that. That's oppression, and we can't talk about anything else. That's what we get about that. But as Karen demonstrated so aptly in that interview, and we have talked about for years, that discussion about suffrage is much more nuanced and much more complicated than you can reduce to a soundbite. Sink couldn't handle that. She was laying out facts about the fact that men's voting rights was tied to their conscription, that they had to stand up and take bullets in order to have the right to vote, and that women didn't.
I had never heard about that Supreme Court ruling.
Yeah, neither had I. Well, and Sink did not want to hear about that Supreme Court ruling because that is when he exploded. That was the very moment. It was like this. He started out really, well, I guess there's kind of a need for a men's rights movement. I know there's some issues. But what about women couldn't vote? And Karen calmly and rationally and intelligently and accurately explained, hey, yes, women couldn't vote for that period of time, just like a lot of men couldn't vote for a long time, and that this gap between women's suffrage and full suffrage for men was not as big as you think it is.
Exactly.
But she explained the rationale behind that in great detail, and you could see him. Whoa.
Karen.
Karen. can I just get a thank you to feminism because you have the right to vote? And she wouldn't give it, so he's like, oh, you're a radical! You're a radical! And we needed to continue this discussion sometime. No, Sink will not continue this discussion. Because you know why? Because Sink talked to somebody that's 17 times smarter and more informed than he is, and he knows that he's not going to do anything but be able to blow up any time he talks to Karen Straughan, because she's going to calmly and deliberately take apart his bullshit sense of worldview. And again, there's an article coming out on this at avoicefrommen.com. Should be out within 24 hours. I finished it today. I was inspired by that. I thought Karen was wonderful. I thought Sink showed us exactly how ideologues think by this sneering sort of condescending, yeah, I suppose there are men's issues, yeah, if you really want to talk about them. And then when he confronted logic and information that his, ideology-addled brain could not process, he went ballistic and bullied and yelled and interrupted and shut her down, able to continue to offend his feminist sensibilities. And, man, it was a work of art.
Yeah, it was a work of art indeed. I enjoyed watching it. And kudos to Karen. You know, I could never be so patient as she was. She was patient. She stayed calm. I think I would have blown my stack a couple of times. She didn't, there were so many things she didn't even bring up that I know she knows about, like the Door Rebellion, which was the rebellion in, I think it was Rhode Island, of men basically trying to get the right to vote. And history doesn't talk about the Door Rebellion. They only talk about the suffragettes. But it was interesting, Karen talked about the suffragists and the suffragettes. I hadn't heard that either. That's for people.
I had heard that, but I had never heard it explained in such detail as she did.
Yeah, anyone who wants to be educated on this, watch that video, and Karen just lays out some really interesting information that even, I think, seasoned people probably don't know much about. So, good stuff, man.
Well, and including, and she just barely scraped it, but there is a very, very lengthy history of violence from suffragettes. Arson, attempted murders. These were gangsters, and they did not want the vote for everybody.
I was going to say,
they wanted votes for landowning white girls.
Right.
And that was it. The suffragists wanted universal suffrage.
Weren't they ticked off that the black men got the vote or something?
Yes.
I get that mixed up.
And they didn't want black women to follow suit.
Right.
And these are the people that we laud as the heroes of the women's movement. Well, guess what?
Racist.
Racist, sexist, elitist, swine. All of them. If those are your heroes, man.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Almost as good as Gloria Steinem.
Huh?
Almost as good as Gloria Steinem.
Well, I was going to say Valerie Solanas. I mean, this is the long tradition of feminists. People don't want to talk about it, but from all the way from the suffragettes to Aaron Pizzey and Warren Farrell speaking out about these issues, and everywhere in between with the domestic violence researchers like Richard Gels and Murray Strauss, Suzanne Steinmetz, going back all throughout history, feminism is a movement of unremitting violence, bullying, intimidation, and harassment. It always has been. That's what's happening to ABFM. ABFM is that same thing. We got death threats in Detroit. We're probably going to get some death threats in Houston. And, of course, it doesn't matter. We're going to go ahead and put it on. But this whole idea of feminism being about egalitarian principles and equality, history doesn't tell that story.
Coming apart at the seams.
Yep, a very different story. And as you're alluding to there, Tom, that is a history that is going to become increasingly well known in society at large as we move forward with them. We're not giving them a pass on their violence, and we're not going to bow to their pressures.
Yeah, yeah. I know the average person seems to respond to feminists like they're a bully. You know, I know people who won't say anything at their workplace. You know, it's like that. No, you can't say that. Why can't you say that? Well, you just can't say it. You know, it's like they're afraid of the bully. You know, they can't speak their truth. They're shut down. They're muzzled. You know, breaks my heart to see these good people, men, muzzled, feeling like they can't say anything. Wow. It's
Warren brought that up last week when he talked about his work in forming what was to become NOMUS, the National Organization of Men Against Sexism, which is a feminist organization. And in the early days of that, Warren wanted to talk and bring in some of the stuff about men's issues in there. And the reaction from his peers was, what do the feminists say?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it sounds like, what's mommy going to say?
Yes. Yeah.
Very much
so. That's going to say, you know.
Yep. Well, I think it may be incorrectly, but I think it's been attributed to Voltaire, is that something to the effect that to know who controls you, see who you're not allowed to offend.
Yes. I don't know that it was Voltaire, but that's a good quote.
Yeah, it's attributed to him sometimes, but who knows where it actually came from? It doesn't matter. It's a very applicable saying.
Yep, it just doesn't matter.
And there's the lengths at which they are willing to go to do this stuff. And I've got another thing to bring up that I haven't even told you, but let me know where we're at if we're done talking about Karen's public humiliation of Sink.
Good job, Karen.
Yay, Karen, go.
Rah, rah, rah.
And something else happened, Tom, that you may not know about. And folks understand that I'm surprising Tom with subjects because we had Peter Lloyd set up to come in. Something came up, and that couldn't work out. And we shifted things around, ended up with Tom and I talking about this stuff, a little bit unprepared.
I like surprises.
Yeah, okay.
Not to worry.
For those of you who would actually understand the term ideological atheist or ideological skeptic or religious atheist, we have a very popular website, not as popular as it used to be, but free thought blogs run by a sort of junior varsity associate professor biologist, P.Z. Myers. And there's a very strict doctrine to what gets said on free thought blogs. Well, you're free as long as you don't disagree with feminism, and they treat it very much like a religion. It's like they claim to be atheists and skeptic community, but all their logic and reason goes out the window, and apparently their values. P.Z. Myers, the person who owns Free Thought Blogs, apparently either created or was emailed a screenshot of something I allegedly said in one of our forums. He did not offer his readers a link to it. He just showed them the image. And it turned out there's an article on it right now on a Voice for Men. You can go in and see all this. The image was photoshopped. We found the thread where the stuff was taken from, and showed in there chronologically that I had never even participated in that thread. They simply took a screenshot of something somebody else had said and pasted it into a frame that showed me as the person saying it, and P.Z. Myers, and it was some crazy PUA shit that I don't even believe in. And I mean really radical fringe stuff about implying that rape is a normal factor in human existence, and that it's maybe not even really rape as we think of it. But the attempt there was to paint me as a rape advocate. So PZ did either one of two things. He either fabricated this, and he has fabricated stuff before. We know that he's fostered false allegations and unsupported allegations against people that are ideologically different than him. But he either did that or somebody emailed him this image, and he didn't care enough. He wasn't enough of a skeptic to go in and look and verify to see whether it was true. And he published it on his site as my words. Absolutely disgusting display. And this is when I say that feminism has an illustrious history of violence, corruption, lying. Well, here we are in 2015.
Wow.
And we have a professor at a school putting out forged documents attributing things to me that I've never said. Am I worried about this? No, because the only people that would believe anything out of P.Z. Myers at this point are the idiots who follow him, like Moonies. But it's real telling to me that this is what we have going on, and I encourage you to go to Free Thought Blogs. I am blocked from there. I'm not allowed to comment with their Borzy crowd. But if you find the article, it's on the front page of ABFM right now. There is a link to the original story, and as far as I know, it's still up, even though some of his readers have already called him out on the document being bogus.
Huh. So what is the reason that he wants to do this to you?
Well, I don't agree with him. And you can't have that when you're a feminist. You can't allow, especially, Free Thought Blogs used to be a very, very high-profile platform, but with his ousting of Thunderfoot and his increasingly draconian measures for ensuring ideological purity in a, I gotta say it, in a fucking community of skeptics. I mean, it's like fucking bizarro. It's bizarro. So totally bizarre.
Why did he throw Thunderfoot? Thunderfoot, by the way, is great. I love his stuff, man. He does a good job. Very good.
Well, if you go to Thunderfoot's channel, look back in his history, you'll find he tells the whole story there. What happened was that Thunderfoot was invited to write at Free Thought Blogs.
Yeah.
And he was told by P.Z. Myers that he could write about whatever he wanted to, that there would be no censorship whatsoever, that whatever you want to put out there is fine. So, okay, Thunderfoot came in, and he launched things with an article that was critical of ideological feminism. And it was taken down, and he was booted out.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes. That's the kind of P.Z. Myers' shit we're dealing with here.
Is that
this guy is scumbag, and we are going to. I'm sure it's not going to be doing any good, but we are going to be sending this to his school because, as far as we know, he's an associate professor, which means that he's like a glorified high school teacher. He doesn't have tenure, and we're going to send this to his school to let them know. He might want to know that. One of their faculty is out there printing falsified information on the internet, defaming and libeling people. Probably will be nothing that will come of it, and we may not be telling his school anything they don't already know.
Yeah.
But it's still, we'll go through our motions and do our thing. And yeah, this guy's a lunatic.
It makes sense. I mean, why would a feminist ask someone to come in and tell them they have carte blanche to write whatever they want to begin with? It doesn't make any sense.
I think probably, and I'm guessing here, because I certainly don't know what was going through his ideology at mine at the time, but my guess is that Thunderfoot was supposed to be so awestruck at the opportunity to contribute to P.Z. Myers' blog and all of his high-profile traffic that he would have decided on his own that he better write along the party line if he wanted to stay there. And, of course, Thunderfoot is not somebody to be trifled with. He apparently didn't buy it, went in and said what he wanted to say, and immediately turned around and kicked him out. And try to find his video on that. I'm sure if you go to YouTube and search Thunderfoot, P.Z. Myers, you're going to come up with that video.
You can't make this stuff up.
No, you can't. It's too bizarre.
It really is.
And this is why people sometimes question, Paul, when they say you lack credibility, why do you laugh? Well, this is why. What else am I supposed to do?
I know.
We're up against people. Mariah Blake did an absolutely vicious, sadistic, disingenuous hit piece on us in Mother Jones after months of investment and playing nicey nice over the phone with me and with Warren Farrell.
For hours.
Yes, for hours.
Hours.
She was absolutely despicable character in the end. But that's what we're dealing with, you know.
Yes.
If feminism knows, feminists know, because you see them running around the internet and other places now all day long saying, well, people don't understand feminism. They don't understand the image. And if they understood, they wouldn't, you know, look down on feminists. And the fact of the matter is society is starting to really look down on feminists. And why? Because of feminists. And they're trying to get them to get that, self-police a little. You know, I know there are decent human beings out there that identify as feminists.
Yes.
Look at Christina Hoff Sommers.
Yes.
They're decent people.
Yes.
And there's others. They're not the only ones. Start policing. Start policing. I mean, with all respect to feminists that really do believe in egalitarian principles, when's the last time you took a public stand against an individual feminist that was out there lying? Even if you criticize the lies themselves, when have you criticized the actual feminists? When have you put anybody on the hot seat for what they do? Not seeing that. So the people that belong to this ideology, they owe it to themselves. If they don't want a bad public perception, then quit censoring people, quit lying about people, and if you see your fellows in that community doing it, call them out publicly. Let it be known you don't want to be associated with people that lie and that corrupt things. And until they do that, they're toast.
And I think it's gotten to the point where the most radical ones are the police. You know, who are you going to call? You're going to call the radicals and tell them they should not do X, Y, Z? No. You know,
I'm going to call Amanda Marcotte and tell her.
They're in a pickle. They're in a pickle, and it's a pickle that you're probably going to have a barrel of, and you know, take them one by one. You know, I like pickles.
Yeah, I like pickles too.
Good on sandwiches.
When somebody else is in one. Especially people I don't like.
Yes, indeed.
Okay, well, I think we've covered all the subjects, Tom Golden. What do you think?
And it's been fun.
I want to remind everybody, April 2nd, tickets go on sale for ICMI 15. That's the International Conference on Men's Issues coming up the 29th, 30th, and 31st of October in Houston, Texas. My stomping grounds. We're going to have beer and barbecue and Mexican food. We're going to have a lot of people socializing with each other, having a blast. And we're also all going to get a great education from some of the great speakers we're lining up. So if you are planning on attending the next ICMI, 29th, 30th, and 31st is the days you want to travel to Houston. So you can get out your travel planners now and start marking time, because it's going to happen. We have a great venue, step up from last year, and we have a very supportive management there that's already prepared for the social justice warriors who are going to try to shut it down. And I think I can make one quote from one person there. I explained it to and told them that there were going to be phone calls and people that didn't want us to speak, and they said something to the effect, well, maybe they can rent the place the next week and stand up and say whatever the hell they want. But in the meantime, we're doing business.
Right on.
So this is a good thing. So I really am encouraged that the feminists will be doing plenty of time wasting on this. And more details will come soon. Anything else before we go, Tom Golden?
Just that I'm looking forward to that conference, getting everybody together again. You know, it was good in Detroit. It's going to be great in Houston. Looking forward to it.
If you were at Detroit, you know it was absolutely cloud nine there. Just the whole atmosphere, the buzz, the fellowship that was there, all of it was just incredible.
Yes.
And I think we'll repeat that again this year. As a matter of fact, I'm very sure that we will.
I'm looking forward to it. So we finished?
Yes, sir. We're finished.
Please, folks, don't forget, there is no I in MANstream. And, of course, on a closing note, men are good. We'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.